Shalom, y'all. Good evening. Before I go to bed, I want to go over something I was studying tonight. I was reading Jasher 41, going over the whole relationship with Joseph and giving more insight on the type of person he was. And your regular KJV or Christian teaching, it makes it seem as though Joseph was just, as if he was just somebody innocent. I mean, he was innocent, don't get me wrong. And what his brothers did to him, there's no justification for that. But he wasn't blameless in the whole scenario. So you read Jasher 41 and then go back to Genesis 37, something becomes clear, right? Joseph was so Joseph was young, favored, gifted, and he was a little prideful. Yes, he was. And like I said, that doesn't justify what his brothers did, but it does explain the tension. Joseph knew that his father loved him more. Joseph knew that he had favor, and he knew he was having prophetic dreams. And just like a lot of younger people, you don't really have understanding to steward your gifts well and just be mindful of who you share your dreams and revelations with when it comes to Yahuwah showing you who you're going to be. I personally can attest to that because when I first began this walk, when I was born again and was still in Christianity, baby, Yahuwah showed me something. And when I say I told everybody, I told everybody was wondering why I was going through the warfare of my life. But yeah, Joseph spoke openly about his dreams, and scripture tells us exactly what that did. And that would be in Genesis 37:5. And Joseph dreamed a dream and he told his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. So yes, there was immaturity, pride, and he did a little boasting too. And that part cannot be ignored. But here's where it gets strange, because the reaction of the sons of Jacob, Yaakov, is extreme, and that's the part that we need to sit with. So these weren't just brothers with hurt feelings, they were covenant men under the covering of the Most High Yahuwah. Like, they were warriors, they were leaders, they were sons of a promise, and yet their response was violence, deception, and premeditation. So in my opinion, that just seems like something deeper was at work there. What I discerned was that it is about generational patterns. And we've seen this pattern before, with the spirit before. We've seen the spirit before. Cain and Abel with jealousy over favor, Ishmael and Isaac, rivalry over inheritance, Esau and Jacob, bitterness over blessing, and Joseph and his brothers, envy, hatred, and betrayal. When you start looking closely, you start seeing the common root. Polygyny being one of them, divided households, favoritism, and unresolved jealousy. So you got to remember that Jacob loved Rachel more than he loved Leah. Joseph was Rachel's son. So that imbalance planted seeds long before Joseph ever opened his mouth. Scripture is clear in Galatians 6:7, whatsoever a man soweth, then he shall reap it, right? Now let's talk about the pit, because this is where Jasher adds critical detail. Jasher tells us that the pit that Joseph was thrown into had no water, but serpents and scorpions, and all of that mattered. So this wasn't discipline or like a scare tactic. They were trying to kill him. They didn't want him gone. You know what I'm saying? They wanted to destroy him. And here is where scripture connects something that was very powerful. There's a consistent biblical principle that says the trap set for the righteous rebounds onto the wicked. So Proverbs 26:27, whoso diggeth a pit shall fall therein. Psalm 7:15-16, he made a pit and digged it, and is fallen into the ditch which he made. Ecclesiastes 10:8, he that diggeth a pit shall fall into it, and a serpent shall bite. And the one that ties it all together, Psalm 38, Psalm 35:8, let his net that he hath hid catch himself into the very destruction, let him fall. I talked to y'all before about that being returned to sender. Joseph's pit was meant for destruction, but the outcome reversed. So they hid the plan, they intended evil, and what came back on them wasn't physical death, it was humbling, exposure, and dependence. So eventually they ended up having to bow to the very same brother that they tried to bury, just like the dream said. And notice this too, serpents keep showing up. And I don't think that's by happenstance. The pit represents a place of death, accusation, and demonic intent. but Joseph came out untouched. Why? Because Yahweh didn't cause the evil, but he used it. Genesis 50, verse 20. But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but Elohim meant it unto good. So, what we saw as sibling rivalry and how it's always been taught all of these years, um, was actually something much deeper. It was generational jealousy, pride, favoritism, and covenant men acting out of the flesh. But the good thing is that Yahweh does not waste betrayal. He doesn't waste pits and he doesn't waste exile. The pit was the pathway and the betrayal was positioning. And the thing that was meant to destroy Joseph became the very thing that elevated him. And that's the part that people miss.